So, ito yung last part ng lesson 1 natin, qualitative characteristics. The qualitative characteristics of useful financial reporting identify the types of information are likely to be most useful to users in making decisions about the reporting entity on the basis of information in its financial report. So, pag sinabi natin qualitative characteristics, ito yung mga qualities or attributes that make financial accounting information useful to others. So, under the conceptual framework for financial reporting, qualitative characteristics are classified into fundamental qualitative characteristics and enhancing qualitative characteristics. The two fundamental qualitative characteristics are relevance and faithful representation. So, pag fundamental qualitative characteristics, so dalawa, relevance and faithful representation. So, si relevance, meron siyang ingredients. So, ito yung predictive value, confirmatory value, and materiality. So, si faithful representation naman, meron din siyang ingredients. So, completeness, neutrality, free from error. Yung fundamental qualitative characteristics relate to the content or substance of financial information. So, dapat daw, yung financial information niya, yung content niya, dapat ay relevant and faithfully represented. So, yung pangalawa naman ay enhancing qualitative characteristics. So, the enhancing qualitative characteristics are comparability, verifiability, timeliness, and understandability. So, the enhancing qualitative characteristics are intended to increase the usefulness of the financial information that is relevant and faithfully represented. So, relevant and faithfully represented financial information is useful, but the information would be most useful if it is comparable, understandable, verifiable, and timely. Okay, so itong enhancing naman relate to the presentation or form of the financial information. So yung fundamental qualitative characteristics relate to content or substance of the financial information, while yung enhancing qualitative characteristics relate to the presentation or form of financial reporting. So, i-discuss natin isa-isa yung qualitative characteristics. Unahin natin yung fundamental qualitative characteristics. So, ito muna tayo sa relevance. So, yung una sa fundamental qualitative characteristics ay relevance. So, relevant information is capable of making a difference in the decisions made by users. So, for example, in the decision to replace machinery that has been used for, let's say, 5 years, yung original cost niya, no machinery, does not have relevance. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, yung original cost ng machinery, let's say 100,000 natin, binili siya 5 years ago, ay irrelevant or not relevant in the decision to replace the machinery. So, yung magiging relevant na information dyan ay yung future amounts. So, magkano ba yung magiging cost ng bagong machinery? And kung magkano din ba yung masisave or kung may masisave ba kapag nireplace natin yung lumang machinery. Okay? So, yun yung relevance. Para mas madali nyong maintindihan yung relevance, ganito lang. Parang isipin mo lang na kung may difference, relevant siya. Pero kung walang difference, irrelevant siya. Okay? So parang katulad nung example natin, yung machinery, kung papalitan mo ba siya or hindi. Okay, yun yung ano natin, yung gagawa natin ng decision. Papalitan mo ba siya ng bago or hindi? Okay? So, yung sinabi ko na cost, yung original cost ng machinery, 100,000. So, may difference ba kung hindi mo siya papalitan? So, kung hindi mo siya papalitan, magkano yung cost nung luma mong machinery? 100,000 pa rin. Kung papalitan mo siya ng bagong machinery, magkano pa rin yung original cost nung luma mong TV? 100,000 pa din. So, ibig sabihin, wala namang bago. Hindi naman sila nagkaiba. Kahit ano yung gawin mo, palitan or hindi mo palitan, yung original cost ng TV, ng machinery mo ay 100,000 pa din. Okay? So, kaya, sabi natin, yung original cost niya ay irrelevant. But sabi natin, yung future amounts ay relevant. Okay? Such as yung cost nung bagong machinery. Okay? So let's say, 'di ba sabi natin, kung papalitan ba or yung old pa rin ba or bibili tayo ng bagong machinery. So kapag kasi bumili tayo ng bagong machinery, yung cost nun, let's say 150,000, kapag in-stay natin yung old natin, let's say hindi natin siya papalitan, so wala kang magiging cost. 'Di ba? Hindi ka maglalabas ng 150,000, so zero. But kapag pinalitan natin ng bagong machinery, kailangan mo maglabas ng 150,000. So ibig sabihin, yung isa, zero yung cost niya kapag old yung ginamit pa rin natin, pero pag new machinery na, magkakaroon ka na ng 150,000 na cost. So may difference ba sila? Yes. So ibig sabihin, yung future amount na yon, yung cost na yon ay relevant. Okay? Financial information is capable of making a difference in decisions if it has predictive value, confirmatory value, or both. So the predictive value and confirmatory value of financial information are interrelated. So yan yung ingredients ng relevance. Predictive value and confirmatory value. Okay, so ano ba yung predictive value? It can be used as an input to process employed by users to predict future outcomes. Kapag naman sinabi natin confirmatory value, it provides feedback about previous evaluations. So ito, kunyari yung na-predict natin, okay, so dito makukonfirm mo kung tama ba yung prediction. Kung hindi tumagma dun sa prediction natin, so at least sa susunod, pwede natin siyang i-adjust hanggang sa yung prediction mo ay maging accurate. So kaya ang sabi dyan ay interrelated yung predictive value and confirmatory value. Okay, so dito sinama na din si materiality sa relevance. And yung last, materiality. So materiality is also part of relevance. So information is material if omitting it or misstating it could influence decisions that users make on the basis of financial information about a specific reporting entity. So itong materiality na discuss na natin yan sa basic principle, 'di ba? So walang specific standard pagdating sa materiality, it depends on the nature and the size of the item. So kapag na-omit siya or namali or na-misstate, so it could influence decisions by the users. Okay, so yun yung tatlong under sa relevance: predictive value, confirmatory value, and materiality. Yung pangalawa sa fundamental qualitative characteristics ay faithful representation. General purpose financial reports represent economic phenomena in words and in numbers. So to be useful, financial information must not only be relevant, it must also represent faithfully the phenomena it purports to represent. O baka yung iba sabihin dyan, buti pa sa accounting, merong faithful, no? Samantalang yung ex ko, hindi naging faithful. Ouch! For example, if the entity records purchases of 150,000 when the actual amount is 100,000, so the information would not be faithfully represented. So kung 100,000 lang yung actual amount ng purchases natin, so dapat i-record siya at 100,000. Para lang din yan yung nag-order ka sa Shopee or Lazada ng sapatos. So tinignan mo muna yung description kung ano yung itsura, kung ano yung materials nung sapatos na orderin mo. So ang ganda, 'di ba? So kaya napa-add to cart ka and na-check out mo. Tapos pagdating sa iyo, pag-deliver nung sapatos, pagbukas mo, excited ka pa naman, binivideo mo pa at sabi mo ay unboxing. Yung pala, makikita mo yung sapatos, parang sapatos ni McDonald. Parang diba, expectation versus reality. Tapos i-review mo. So kung pwedeng wala ngang star, isi-zero mo, no? So tas ilalagay mo, not faithfully represented. Wow! Accountant na accountant, diba? To be a perfectly faithful representation, a depiction should have 3 characteristics. Okay, so namely, completeness, neutrality, and free from error. So, unahin muna natin yung completeness. So, pag sinabi natin completeness, a complete depiction includes all information necessary for a user to understand the phenomenon being depicted, including all necessary descriptions and explanations. So, ibig sabihin, lahat ng information na kailangan ng user para maintindihan kung ano yung nasa financial statements ay nandoon na. Okay? So, dito din papasok yung adequate disclosure. Okay? So, na-discuss din natin yan sa basic principles. So, pag sinabi natin adequate disclosure means that all significant and relevant information are clearly reported. Okay. So, kaya nga nagkakaroon tayo ng notes to financial statements. Kasi yung hindi na ilalagay sa financial position or sa balance sheet and dun sa income statement or yung comprehensive income natin, so makikita natin dun sa notes to financial statements. So, kunwari yung property, plant, and equipment nakalagay sa financial position or do sa balance sheet natin ay 10 million. So, sa notes to financial statements, dun mo makikita yung breakdown ng 10 million. And kung ano yung description nila. Kung machinery ba siya, land ba siya, building ba siya. And kung anong method yung gagamitin for depreciation. And kung ilang years yung useful life niya. So, dun makikita sa notes to financial statements. So, kaya dapat daw, ang financial information natin ay dapat ay complete. Next is neutrality. So, pag sinabi nating neutrality, free from bias or unbiased in the selection or presentation of financial information. So, ibig sabihin, walang kinikilingan. Okay, so neutral lang siya dapat. So, a neutral depiction is not slanted, weighted, emphasized or de-emphasized or otherwise manipulated to increase the probability that financial information will be received favorably or unfavorably by users. Okay? So, dapat daw neutral lang. Okay? And yung last ay freedom from error. So, pag sinabi natin freedom from error, no errors or omissions for the reported information, or there are no errors or omissions in the description of the transaction and other events, and no errors have been made in selecting and applying an appropriate process to produce the reported information. Okay, so but sabi naman, hindi naman natin sinasabi na pag free from error does not mean perfectly accurate. Pag sinabi natin freedom from error, ibig sabihin mo, ma'am, hindi po ba dapat magkamali? Okay, so pwede naman magkamali, but yung intentional, yun yung hindi dapat, 'di ba? So, yan yung ingredients ng faithful representation, completeness, neutrality, and freedom from error. So, yung enhancing qualitative characteristics naman ay 4 yung kailangan nyong tandaan. Comparability, verifiability, timeliness, and understandability. So, unahin nating i-discuss yung comparability. So, comparability enables users to identify and understand similarities in and differences among items. So, sabi, information about a reporting entity is more useful if it can be compared with similar information about other entities and with similar information about the same entity for another period or another date. So, unlike the other qualitative characteristics, comparability does not relate to a single item. So, a comparison requires at least 2 items. Okay? So, dapat daw yung financial statements natin ay comparable. So, sa actual class, kapag naggawa ka ng financial position and income statement, hindi lang isang taon, let's say, or isang buwan, kung monthly yung preparation, so, hindi lang yung ngayong buwan, but inilalagay din yung last month and yung budgeted or yung forecasted. So, bakit? Para ma-compare. Okay? So, para ma-compare, let's say, so, kunwari, yung sales mo, yung current month ay 200,000, tapos yung last month ay 300,000. So, naka-present din yun, nakalagay din doon yun para ma-compare. So, makikita mo, bakit anong difference? Bakit bumaba yung sales natin? Okay, so comparability. So, sabi din, consistency although related to comparability is not the same. Okay, so consistency refers to the use of the same method for the same time, either from period to period within a reporting entity or in a single period across entities. So, pag sinabi kasi natin consistency, dapat, let's say, pareho sila ng method. Okay, so, bakit, di ba, na-discuss din naman natin to sa basic principles, bakit daw dapat dapat consistent. So, para ma-achieve yung comparability, para ma-compare mo. So, ibig sabihin yung goal mo ay para ma-compare. Okay? So, comparability is the goal. Consistency helps to achieve that goal. So, comparability is not uniformity. So, for information to be comparable, like things must look alike and different things must look different. Kasi, sabi nga natin yung comparability, so, ito yung para makita ng users, ma-identify niya and maintindihan niya ano ba yung similarities and dissimilarities. Okay? Yung pangalawa naman ay verifiability. So, verifiability assure users that information represent faithfully the economic phenomena it purports to represent. Okay? So, verifiability means the different knowledgeable and independent observers could reach consensus, although not necessarily complete agreement that a particular depiction is a faithful representation. So, in other words, verifiability implies consensus. Okay? So, the financial information is verifiable in the sense that it is supported by evidence, so that an accountant that would look into the same evidence would arrive at the same economic decision or conclusion. Diba, na-discuss din na natin yan sa basic principles, yung reliability. So, para maging reliable yung information, dapat siya ay verifiable. Okay? So, dapat supported ng documents. Okay. Next ay timeliness. Okay. So, timeliness means that information is available to decision makers in time to be capable of influencing their decision. So, dapat yung financial statements natin ay on time, 'di ba? So, kasi kung hindi na pala kailangan, so hindi na siya magiging useful. Okay? So, 'di ba parang ano yung kasabihan na aanhin pa ang damo kung patay na ang kabayo, 'di ba? So, on time dapat. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na timeliness. And yung last ay understandability. Okay? So, understandability, classifying, characterizing, and presenting information clearly and concisely makes the information understandable. So, yung financial statements natin or yung financial information natin, dapat daw ay understandable. Okay? So, di ba meron tayong different users ng accounting information. So, dapat ay naiintindihan nila. So, kaya pagdating sa financial statements, bawal yung abbreviation. Let's say, nakalagay ASC. So, according to ASC or kaya as per ASC nakalagay doon. So, ano yung ASC? Baka hindi alam yun ng users. So, kailangan complete ilagay mo doon para maintindihan siya. So, accounting as per Accounting Standard Council. So, yung mga ganon. So, dapat naiintindihan ng users. But, pag sinabi natin naiintindihan ng users, so, ni-assume din natin na yung mga users natin ay may basic knowledge ng accounting. So, tandaan yung qualitative characteristics. So, meron tayong fundamental qualitative characteristics and enhancing qualitative characteristics. So, yung fundamental qualitative characteristics relate to the content or substance no financial statements or financial information. So, pag yung fundamental qualitative characteristics, dalawa, relevance, faithful representation. So, under na relevance, may dalawang ingredient siya, predictive value and confirmatory value, and under din sa kanya ang materiality. Ang faithful representation naman, tatlo, completeness, neutrality, and free from error. So, yung enhancing naman, relate to the presentation or form. So, apat naman yan, comparability, verifiability, timeliness, and understandability. Actually guys, dati yung qualitative characteristics apat lang. Relevance, reliability, understandability, and comparability. But ngayon, hinati na sa dalawa. Yung fundamental qualitative characteristics and enhancing qualitative characteristics. Okay, so kaya if ever na meron kayong ma-encounter na question na tinatanong ay qualitative characteristics na hindi naka-separate si fundamental and enhancing, so baka luma pa yon. So ang tandaan nyo na lang din, yung apat dati ay reliability, relevance, comparability, and understandability. Actually, nandito din naman yun relevance. Yung reliability, ito din yung verifiability, then comparability and understandability.